This time I'll call the York County Council today, March 12th, 2024 workshop to order. We only have a couple of items on the agenda tonight. The first of which is the presentation of planning internal audit recommendations. I'll turn it over to you, David.
Yeah, I'll just introduce the topic. As you know, we have an internal audit department. Aaron Ziegler heads that up. And it's very common for us to do audits of all of our departments. During the course of our process, the planning department was up. I know that was of particular interest to council. We let you know that we were starting that process a few months back, and that is now complete. Aaron has made his report to me, which is the standard protocol. He would inform me, and typically council doesn't even see these. It's just a review of what all the departments do, and then any recommendations he makes to me, and then we implement those. Same process here, but because council had expressed an interest, we thought we would just give you a status update on where we were on what the recommendations are. You have those. I sent you out, admittedly, a very long report the other day, but at the back of it are these recommendations. A lot of them are very self-explanatory. Most of them have already been implemented or addressed. There's a few outstanding things that planning is working on, and so that's where we are. We could talk about any of them if you have any questions. I thought I'd let Aaron maybe just give you a brief overview of how we approach that, and then again, you have the recommendations in front of you. If you have any questions about that, we can talk about that, or let you know anything about the ones that have not fully been resolved yet.
So first, I'll just start out by saying, thank you to Jonathan and the planning staff. Anytime we asked for anything or, looked through stuff, they were more than willing to get us what we needed immediately and that kind of stuff. So there was no hiccups or hesitations there. So, I just want to thank you and your planning department. Overview of internal audit, what we normally do, going department by department. A lot of departments have policies and procedures, but when I first got here to the county, we noted not a lot of that is just documented. That's not a very uncommon occurrence in local government. So one of internal audit's big functions right now is going around to the various departments and just documenting all policies and procedures into like a living, breathing document that, moves forward with that department going forward. So that was, one of the things that we started with in the planning department is we documented those policies and procedures, and in that report that David sent you, that would be like attachment A. Council wanted us to look at, a few more things when it came to the planning department, so we did more of a deep dive, and, attachment B in that original report was, benchmark testing. We looked at cases, case turnaround times, how many cases we were getting throughout the various, whether it be a residential permits or zoning permits or all those sorts of things. We analyzed that data and looked through it. We also reached out to, several constituents, taxpayers, applicants, whatever you want to call them, and we did a customer service review, and that would have been an attachment C in that original report. Attachment D, council had some very specific questions that they did want us to answer, so we put those in the report as well. Attachment E was, just things that we noted that were outside of those particular scopes, and that was in there. Attachment F is what you have in front of you tonight, and that is basically the recommendations through all of the previous aforementioned attachments. Just anything that we noted or could see improvement on or those sorts of things we recommend to that department and the particular management over that department, and we normally review those with them. I will say planning did get a jump on the ball as we, talked to them about it, and before this report was even finalized, they had probably knocked out a lot of these on the list. So I'm not going to go through every single one. I know y'all gotten the report before, and I know that you have it in front of you tonight, and I'm always here to answer questions. But I will say a lot of it was more just becoming more consistent across the board and, drafting up some policies that maybe, we didn't have in place before to just shore up operations and those sorts of things. But other than that, that's kind of a high level of what we did and those sorts of things.
Okay, does anybody, council have any questions? It's a lot of information to digest, so I think, council probably hadn't had a chance with all the other stuff we've had going on to take a look at it. One thing I did note, and I go through it and then I go through it again and find something different. It looks like the permits have decreased almost in half from 2019 to 2023. Or I guess these are inspection counts, but it's connected to the permit count.
Which page?
I'm looking at 25, page 25.
You don't have.
Where did we help get all of that? Was that sent to us?
Yeah.
David emailed it last week. Okay.
50
Actually,
pages.
Karen emailed, I emailed Karen, she had sent it to you.
Okay.
So yes, that particular chart looks like it has to deal with residential inspections.
Uh-huh.
And that does look like the,
Those are decreased almost in
correct.
half.
Now, I will say though, 2023 does have an asterisk about it, because whenever we pulled the data, it only ran up through somewhere in November. So that last year is obviously a snapshot, and as that year continued, and I know that they did have more cases than what's shown on that actual chart.
Well, let me ask council this. Did y'all even who else had a chance to look at it? Cause there's no point in,
I glanced.
I haven't looked at it
Okay.
at all.
why don't we just digest this then?
Yeah,
And
no.
do y'all have any specific questions?
I know
Well-
No? Okay.
I was wondering one thing, on variances and all, Jonathan, that they ain't had a ZBA meeting in a while. What's going on there?
There is less to request a variance from in the code. So that's one of the benefits of the code update. Is a lot of problematic provisions that were in the code that people were constantly asking variances from the board for are no longer an issue, so there's nothing to ask for a variance for. The number one variance that we have requested in almost every single meeting was a road frontage variance. And now there's a provision in the code, and because the board was granting those every single time they came up, that's indicative that there was a code change that needed to happen rather than demanding that the board stop approving road frontage variances. So, a provision was added to the code, that allows the access easement for 2 lots behind a lot that has sufficient frontage. As long as the easement is recorded and there's an agreement about maintenance of that easement. So that's why you see far fewer variances, because more than half of them are road frontage variances. Is that fair to say?
And if we have no cases, there's no need to meet, so, that's been the case.
Yeah.
Does that mean there's flexibility built into the code to allow for some of these things?
No,
We had one of our, at the meeting last night, one of the zoning board folks walked up and said that they haven't even had a meeting for 3 months.
And that's because people are able to do things without having to go to that extra step to ask the zoning board to waive a provision of the code to be able to do what they want to do. So that tells you there's more flexibility in the code.
I think the appeals process would still be the same. I mean, they still have the right to appeal the same things. They just have less need to appeal.
Correct.
One of the areas that I know is important in my district are the work from home provisions and allowing, that doesn't really have, expanding the work from home.
Home occupation.
Yes, home occupation. I think that was something that I've gotten at least a handful of calls on specific rezonings where they didn't have an option. They didn't have a request to do that, so that's one area that was a concern. I appreciate the work that was put into this and the work that y'all did, David. I think it's probably a better idea that council have an opportunity to digest all that before we dive in. We can reconvene on that issue.
Yes, several of the recommendations were just like how they complete a permit, or how they take money, or who signs off on reports. Just more administrative in nature. There were some recommendations related to customer service, and I know that's probably what council has a greater interest in, and we're implementing those. So just read through like I said, they're pretty self-explanatory, but if we need to give you an update on where we are with any of that, we can do that at a future meeting.
Thank you. Now we have a discussion regarding the temporary sign ordinance. I guess, as we left it from council last week, the consensus from council was to remove the cost. Do you have a presentation you want to give? Okay, good.
So here, I've got the wacky wavy inflatable arm flailing tube man. That's a type of temporary sign. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of the code provisions that we're changing here or looking at changing. So here's the definition of a temporary sign. These are all the photos that are in the code that are examples of a temporary sign. I just wanted to point out this last part of the definition. So it talks about these are not fixed structures that are going to be there permanently. This is something that's going to be there for a temporary period. So the examples here do not limit the content of temporary signs, and the county will not review the content of temporary signs. And that inclusion in that definition is an important one. That's because of the Supreme Court case Reed versus the town of Gilbert, which was in 2015. So not to go into great length here, but in summary, the sign code for Gilbert, Arizona required that all outdoor signs had to have a permit. Anything that didn't have a permit wasn't allowed. But they included various exemptions that had different limitations. So they had about 23 different kinds of exemptions based on the type of sign that it was and the message that it had on it. So the distinctions that the court drew from here were on 3 different types of sign exemptions. Ideological signs were allowed to be located on property for a longer period of time, be larger to some degree than were political signs, and political signs had more permissiveness than did directional signs for special events. So they had all these different layers that, based on what your sign was trying to tell people, it had more or less permissiveness based on the content of the message. So the Supreme Court ruled that those differences were content-based, and so I had that underlined. So that refers to how that sign code is being interpreted under the First Amendment. So any content restrictions of free speech are reviewed under the strict scrutiny judicial standard. And essentially that means the government has to prove that there is a compelling government interest that is narrowly tailored to the restriction that would survive that strict scrutiny. So if the government is unable to do that, it's unconstitutional regulation on its face. So just as an aside, strict scrutiny is almost impossible to prove for governments. So you need to avoid it at all costs. So the court held that regulating signs differently based on the content is therefore unconstitutional. And here's an excerpt from the court's ruling on that. It was written by Justice Thomas. It says, the town sign code likewise singles out specific subject matter for differential treatment, even if it does not target viewpoints within that subject matter. Ideological messages are given more favorable treatment than messages concerning a political candidate, which are themselves given more favorable treatment than messages announcing an assembly of like-minded individuals. That is a paradigmatic example of content-based discrimination. So that's the reason that when Recode was done, that the consultants took great pains to make sure that our sign code was content neutral. That you didn't have to analyze what the message on the sign was in order to regulate if it was allowed or not. So here's the table that's in the temporary signs section. So see the letters there, AOS, RES, SSC, CI, and LW. Those are the 5 different sign districts. So AOS is agricultural and open space. RES is all the residential districts. SSC is small scale commercial. CI is commercial and industrial. And LW is the Lake Wiley overlay. So you can see where it says, are temporary signs allowed? So yes, across the board, temporary signs are allowed. Is a permit required? There's no permit required for agriculture and open space sign district or the residential sign district. That's already the case. It is required if it's over 4 square feet for these 3 districts, the small scale commercial, the commercial and industrial, and the Lake Wiley overlay. There's a temporary sign setback of 10 feet, so 10 feet back of the right of way. Now, this is the same across all the districts. So every district is allowed to have 1 lot perimeter sign. So inside of the setback, you can still have 1 sign that's a maximum of 4 square feet at a height of 4 feet.
Does that distinguish between temporary versus permanent?
This whole section is exclusive to temporary,
This only applies to temporary?
only places.
So that one sign there would allow candidates running to put one in the right of way.
No, sir. So in between, so there is a 10-foot setback. So here's your right of way.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So here I've got this is a whole example. So here's your right of way, and here's the setback line. This is in red. Here's your 10-foot setback. So most of your signs are going to be behind that 10-foot setback. You are allowed to have one sign, that small 4 square foot sign, in between the setback and the right of way. Nothing can go in the right of way.
Well, that's what I was getting at, on the edge of the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that will allow us to tell you you can put a sign in the right of way. Most of our right of ways are DOT right of ways, but even county right of ways, we can't give you permission to put a sign in a roadway right of way. So,
And here's where
How do they
the,
do that? What's the state rule on that, the right of way? I was
You
always,
can get an encroachment permit for certain signage.
it seems like all the signs that I ride down the road are in the right of way.
well, they
But-
are, but they're not allowed.
not legal.
Nobody's state, it would
One
be
of the-
state enforcement.
one of the very few provisions that the state has on signage is you cannot put a sign in state highway right of way. That's-
Oh.
But they don't
Well-
enforce it.
How does this affect, because once you get back at 10 foot there, you talking about private property then.
Yeah, I'll get into it.
Are signs excluded from our public works encroachment permits? They have that whole list of things I haven't looked at in a while. Okay.
So, the rest of the signage.
Jonathan,
Go
real
ahead.
quickly, all right, so, under Lake Wiley as an example, because I'm just making a contrast between York County and then Lake Wiley. You got 16 square feet under sign area, but on the application, the 16 square feet cannot exceed 16 square feet. From what I'm reading, it is for all of York County. Lake Wiley actually has a little different definition. Their definition is not exceeding 32 square feet if you have two different messages on a sign. So they're saying theirs is 8 feet by 6 feet. The regular county's 8 by 8 max, or 15 feet tall, 1 foot in diameter.
Watts, you might be in a different section. Do you have the section number?
I'm actually reading the temporary application for a sign, so this is what's laid out on it. So if this is incorrect, it doesn't jive with that.
Do you have a date on that application?
2017.
Yeah.
So that's
out
not
of date.
the most current. Okay, all right, let me go back. Thank you, appreciate that.
No
Let me see if I can find the most current. I got that off the internet, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
Under-
older
under-
documents are unperfect.
Under York County government.
They're gonna check.
For the lot interior sign, so lot interior means everything behind that 10-foot setback line.
So wait a minute, one second.
Nope.
So assuming this is the only one on the internet that people are downloading, because I don't see anything differently, and it's taken a long time for this to open back up again. I guess we'll need to look into this.
Do we have a temporary sign application we can point Mr. Beach?
Well, make sure you're pulling up online what the public's pulling up, because that may contradict what you have here. Because what I'm looking at definitely contradicts what you have there. And this is coming from yorkcounty.gov.
Yeah, and there are a lot of, and this is a problem we run into all the time, there are a lot of older documents that are archived on the
Right.
county website.
Okay.
So we do our best to try to remove them as they get updated. So that's another one we'll add to the list
Okay.
to have removed.
Thank you, I appreciate you letting me interrupt.
Yes, thank you.
So what is the date that should be there? You said, you asked him what date, and it was,
2017.
yeah.
So
So
what
what
is-
should be the
We should
current?
have one that is at least as recent as March of 2022, if not just prior to.
Okay, March of 20.
So is it, so just so I'm clear on this too, I think, was it based on our ask last time was to remove the requirement for, I think there was a request that was needed to be submitted, correct?
So here, that's this here, permit
Yeah.
required.
Yeah.
So that's this line here. So
Okay.
as the motion read, that y'all read out on, last Monday, this
Mhm.
would be no across the board.
No, across the board, okay.
We haven't made any changes yet, this is what's in the order.
That's what's currently, okay, I just want to, okay. So when we remove, we bring that no across the board, then, so then we're back to our standard requirements, right, from before? Does that eliminate, then bring us back to square one?
So, when it comes to the permitting,
Uh-huh,
I'm gonna be honest with you guys, we don't get people applying for the temporary sign permits. And that was true, before Recode, and that's true
Right.
now. People just don't apply for them, they just put them up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so we are complaint-based, so unless someone complains that, you know, this business down the street has 10 feather signs and I can't see where I'm driving, we're not out there looking for non-compliant sites.
right,
So people aren't applying for them anyway.
Okay.
But if you had these as if they had the signs out there and they didn't apply for a permit, as long as they complied with the rest of it, they would be fine.
now, was that the biggest change in the recode, was that the change in the recode? Requiring them to apply, or what was the change?
No, the change was to go from a content-based code that regulated signs differently based on what the messaging of the sign was. So I think you come in just after, that part of it, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, just to quickly rehash that, there was a Supreme Court case that said you can't regulate based on what the content of the sign is. So our
Okay.
consultants took that, and implemented it into the sign code to make it content neutral, so you don't have to read what the sign is telling you to decide if it's allowed to stay there or not.
All right, now can I ask a question? Hey, Allison, I need to put you on the spot. So, York County's, one at 32 square feet, 5 at 4 square feet, so 2x2 sign. But it's interesting, Lake Wiley, and what'd you say CI is?
Commercial and industrial.
Commercial industrial. So you are 5 at 16 square feet. What was your logic there? I'm just trying to understand. What's your logic there compared to what the county's doing at 5 at 4 square feet?
I didn't come up with this.
Oh.
This was county, this was planning department. I didn't
So
come up
one-
with these numbers.
Why is it different for Lake Wiley versus and
We've had a
commercial
sign
industrial?
ordinance in place since maybe back to 2003, that the chamber and the residents at that time, put in place because we have, the largest commercial area now. We didn't at that time, but, we have the largest commercial area that's unincorporated in the county. So
Mhm.
it's like, you know, we try to control what the roads look like, how bad
Sure,
it looks. And
but
because we
you
get
got a
all-
larger sign, so I'm wondering why don't we just do the whole
I
county
think
at
that's
5
an
at 16
error
square feet?
I think it's actually in the code.
Yeah,
I don't think it was intended to be in the code, because it makes no sense that you can have a larger sign in Lake Wiley than you can in the other residential.
well, 2017, it was 32 square feet
But there is a
on
provision.
2 signs together.
Yeah,
That's
so what
billboards.
the consultants did here was not only try to make the sign code content neutral, but also recognize that Lake Wiley had its own sign standards in the overlay. So rather than that being in a separate chapter, they brought in the Lake Wiley overlay sign standards into the sign districts as its own sign district. So all the sign regs are in one spot, rather than having to search multiple parts of the code for how you regulate signage.
Yeah, but what's
Now,
interesting,
the big difference between Lake Wiley and other signage is actually not on temporary signage. It's more on permanent signage and what's allowed in terms of electronic reader boards and things like that.
sure. What I was gonna say is from 2017, it was 8 by 6, 14 square feet in the county. In Lake Wiley, it was 8 by 8. No, yes. It's only 2 feet difference. I mean, it's nothing. And then they had a provision where you'd have 32 square feet on 2 signs on the same pole, I guess, or the same stand. So they actually were more liberal than the rest of the county, based on 2017.
And that's maybe where our consultant got the idea that more and bigger signs could be allowed in the Lake Wiley sign district than necessarily the residential district.
But that's counter to what Allison just said. they were looking for smaller signs and less signs.
Yeah, and if that's a change that council wants to pursue to allow, or to reduce the size of signage in Lake Wylie, that's certainly a
Yeah,
lever that you could.
I don't know, but it seems like, why wouldn't we all have it the same? Understand what Lake Wylie's trying to do, theoretically limiting signs, but that actually encourages larger signs.
Can you just break down for me, because I've not studied this, can you just share with me, this chart deals solely with temporary signs. We've established that you can't distinguish between political versus anything else. It will say, kiss my rear end, and it gets the same treatment.
Yep.
What I'm looking at here is that on the perimeter, nothing can be in the right of way. You can have one sign in the 10-foot setback.
Yes.
What is lot interior sign, max?
That's
6?
everything behind the 10-foot line.
So.
Can you go to the diagram?
Yes. So here is it's find visual aids to help in circumstances like this. So here's that lot perimeter sign. You can have one 4 square foot sign in between the setback and the right of way. Everything else, this is the maximum number of signage that I have. I don't think it's the scale, obviously, but this, I've depicted the maximum number of signs you could have in each of the districts. So here's the districts at the top. And this is what you could have. You could have one 32 square foot sign. That's the same for AOS as it is in the residential. So you can have a 32 square foot sign and 5 additional signs of 4 square feet each in the residential districts without a permit.
What's a square foot? Is a 4x8? Give me a frame of reference.
4 by 8 would be 32.
That
So
could
those
be
are 4
one
by
of the
8s.
signs.
All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this would be
The big ones.
Yes, the big ones would be either 32. These.
You can only have one 4x8 in a
Yes.
residential,
Yes.
and those smaller ones are like little small,
2 by
little
2.
18 by 24s, or they can be. That's just not. I mean, I've seen. Okay.
Those are like real estate signs.
Yep. And so the other districts, so everything that's inside of the brown box, that is all that requires a permit today. So all these little signs, none of these require a permit. These big signs in the agricultural residential district, they don't require a permit. The
But you can
bigger
only
ones
have
do.
one on your whole property.
One big one.
One big one.
But
That's
it's-
not. That's not even consistent with what I see out there. I mean, look.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just gonna.
I know it's not consistent with what you see.
Right, what you see and what's allowed is different.
Well, and except unless somebody complains, and then it becomes a big issue.
That's right.
So, I think Lake
Well-
Wylie has had their own for a while.
So,
I don't care what they have.
So we can go
I wanna
to-
have as much flexibility in the other ones, cause I think people would be,
Again, let's go back to the
Upset.
table.
You think we can put 2 4x8s in there?
yeah, I see it all,
So-
the time, especially for I don't see the distinguishment. If a business owner says that they wanna have a temporary sign that's 4x8, they do it all the time, like right on the corners, and that's how I've always seen it done.
Well,
That, to me, is the property owner, if he wants to allow that doesn't bother me. If Lake Wylie wants to have something because they're having issues, I'm fine with that. But I have a real problem with, I know this from having run before, is that there are property owners who say, yeah, can I get your permission to put this up here? And there may be 3 or 4 folks that do it, yeah.
People.
Let me explain, what you have there, the brown line, based on what you've told us so far, we're gonna remove that brown line, and none of these will require a permit.
Right.
I like that idea.
So, and you gotta remember,
Not
this is
forcing it
in
in.
addition to what you're allowed to have on your site permanently. So if you have a Jiffy Lube that has 3 or 4 signs, it's Jiffy Lube, special today, blah, blah, blah. Well, these are in addition to that. So if you say you can have multiple temporaries in the commercial district, they could be more signs that says Sale Friday. or,
Mattresses and gutters. and chicken
Ladies'
sticks.
Day or something, or, 5-minute car wash, whatever. You could have whatever you allow to be placed as a temporary would be in addition to all their commercial signs they already have.
The permanent
So,
one.
that's right. So you could, and these we're talking about allowing these temporary to be up year round or 90 days or 180, whatever y'all decide. So I think our concern is it leads to a very large proliferation of signs, because they very well may put up the vote for Pedro sign, but they might put up, you know, Pepsi, Mountain Dew, Bud Light, you know, all on, if you, as temporary signs, they may take advantage of those, because they're gonna be allowed to put as many of those as you can put up political signs.
I get that. I guess my question though is that, like, we have to pay staff to enforce this too, and it looks like, you know, we have to be mindful of that too. How much are you charging taxpayers to go out here and pick up these signs, and how do you do something that happens? What's the, can we go back to what we are now, that chart? Is there any way for you to quickly share, like, what Recode did that was different from what was before? Is there a way to?
There's no quick way to answer that, because this table didn't exist before. So this is what the consultants put together as a simple way to convey all of the sign standards in a single table.
Well, what about now, real estate companies, they real bad, like you got them 2-post design double-sided, but a lot of them, you know, put them V or L shape. Is that gonna be classified, since it's linked together, as one or two separate?
It'll be 2 sign faces. So it's however many faces you have, that's your area. So if you've got one face, you know, typically you would have them front so that you see it as you're driving by. But if they've got 2 faces, that's 2 signs, 2 areas.
Jonathan, so what was the number before Recode, the max number of lot perimeter signs?
There was no such thing as a lot perimeter.
Yeah, that's an old one.
So this is all new?
Yes, ma'am.
Jonathan, on the picture of the properties, can you go back just one second? What's the right of way, like in that 10 foot at the bottom?
This is the right of way here. So here's I tried to make a road thing here. So everything that was like, that's the road, that's the right of way.
I understand.
So this is your setback, 10 feet from.
So that whole thing is the right of way?
Yeah,
The dotted
typically you
line.
don't have pavement that extends the whole right.
It's just for the purposes of it.
So like if you're in the road and you've got the curve and you got the sign, stop sign there, and you put your sign in front of that stop sign or between the post of a sign, like most people do, that's in the is that in the right of way or is that in the setback?
It's in the right.
It's in the right of way.
But is it also in the setback?
Yeah.
So where does this, I don't understand where the setback begins.
So, so this was just a simple illustration to try to convey it.
I mean, it looks like it's missing a line across
It
the
is.
bottom.
Yeah,
Okay.
so you would have you would have sidewalk, or you would have some grass here that includes additional right of way beyond just the road itself.
Generally 5 feet, if I
Well,
can
right of way
say.
changes depending upon the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah.
So you never know what that is.
His diagram is.
Is it
Well, it's a great, I think it's an excellent diagram, but he could have narrowed his street down a little bit.
Sure.
Well, I know that I ended up having to set one of my fences back on property, but now I measured from the center of the road and then 10 foot, which actually ended up being, I think I set back like 15 feet to put the fence up, which gave it about a 5 or 6 foot ditch.
Sometimes it's very difficult to
Yeah.
determine where the right is.
Yeah, they're not on the ground.
Cause I got property pins that are in the road right away.
Old time.
Yeah.
So Jonathan, with these numbers, how did you come up with these numbers for the code,
The consultants came up with that.
the consultants?
You asked what's different about Recode, since Recode. I just read through it. They're fairly consistent. The former code allowed a 6 square foot sign in some cases where we allow a 4 square foot. The 32 square foot sign was still, you could put that up in most cases. There was a provision in there that political signs had to be pulled up 14 days after the election, whereas now it says they can be up for any 30-day period. I think both of those fall short of what council would probably want, because we had a primary, so if you had to remove the signs 14 days after the primary, well, when do you put the general election sign up?
Right.
And if 30 days doesn't capture, I mean, there's people that want to put them up now for the election, and I understand that. So I'd suggest that 30-day period be,
Right.
I mean, not even have a time period on it, just have it year-round, or have it 180 days, or whatever council's comfortable with, but it needs to be more than 30, in my opinion, because people want those signs up more than 30 days.
If you've ever,
Agree.
So the city of Rockville.
Yeah,
has
that
that.
running out and putting them out and then getting them back up,
But if you allow
going
them
again.
year-round, they're really not temporary, they may be temporary by the structure, but they're not temporary for somebody to, and I'm not opposed to somebody, if they have a particular candidate they like, if you know, advertise that every day of the year, that's, you know, I don't know that.
We have many of those.
Pardon me?
We have many of those.
Yes, so, I mean, that's an option for you, you can make that 365 days a year. But-
Well, I would,
And so what it comes down to, again, I hate to tell them to keep going back to that slide, but one more time, we need to know how many signs you think is appropriate, where they can be as far as each district, do you want all districts treated the same, and how big the signs can be. I mean, if you'll tell us that, we'll write it in the code that way. We did try to make it somewhat consistent with the ordinance that we have in place now, but again, I think that chart is much easier to read than what we had in our previous code. As complicated as it is, so, but I do think it's fairly consistent with our previous code, and I'll let Jonathan talk.
So one more question, do the now hiring signs, is that, they can put those out anytime, or is that a part of this?
Those are temporary signs.
They're temporary signs, okay.
Yep, so here are, this is
So they're gonna
the,
be hiring 365
Oh,
days.
they
a year,
already
probably.
are, yeah.
so here's the company text that goes along with the table. This is all of it, so, between this table and this text, this one sheet of text, that's, what council's considering amending at this time. So here are the different levers, David spoke to, this a second ago. So you've already said you don't want any permitting for temporary signs. So then the rest would be, where do you want them? How many do you want to be allowed? How big do you want them to be? How high do you want them to be? And how long do you want them to be there for?
I can answer all of that for the Lake Wiley overlay.
okay, can you share it,
Yep.
please?
So for the Lake Wiley, and I've spoken with President of the Chamber, so we are in agreement on this. That's been in place for a long time. So the permitting would be no fees for permitting.
So no permitting.
No permitting, you don't have to have a permit. We would like to have a difference between residential and commercial. So no signs, no temporary signs in the commercial area.
No temporary signs at all.
No, that's what we have now. That's basically what happens now. So over time, everybody's kind of come to know what to do and what not to do. So we have a corner that is the community corner, and we would like to allow signs in that corner. It's out in front of the famous toastery, and we would like for those signs to look nice, to be tight, and to be removed after an event. So it's one corner where people put up banners, and I mean, right now there's a St. Patrick's Day festival sign there, and a lot of times there's Lake Wiley Athletic Association. That's a community corner. Other than that, we spend a lot of time picking up signs. When you talk about having staff come out, we're picking up signs for gutter cleaning, chimney sweeps, mattresses for sale, that all the time. So we have a difference between residential and commercial wishes. So as far as the residential goes, the sign, and as far as that goes, also, the realtors in Lake Wiley they all follow the rule. It's very rare that we see a sign out for a realtor that's not a Friday through Sunday, and that's okay. I know you can't say realtors, but if we just don't even talk about that, everybody already knows that. They are very consistent in the fact that do you agree with that, John? That the realtor signs are generally only out Fridays through Sundays?
I don't pay them that much attention, but
Yeah.
I see, they normally pay somebody, I mean, they're kind of different.
Yeah, they come
Because
around.
they
show
pay
up, and,
somebody
yeah.
to go around and put them out and then come back and pick them up, but that's a different topic than all of the others. That's kind of a
Right,
unique
so
thing.
I think if we just, I don't think anybody's gonna complain about those, I think is what I'm trying to say. Cause they've been doing that for years, and, they've not abuse that privilege whatsoever. We actually thought that the overlay said that they could do that from Friday to Sunday. And so that's not
But
a,
if they're in the right of way, again, we cannot say
that's,
that's okay.
and they are, but that's, you know what I'm saying? So somebody could complain to the county or to the state and would come and get them. But I don't think that's gonna happen. It's never happened, so I don't think it's gonna happen. We've got more awareness on this now, so.
Right,
But I don't.
we don't
think
wanna
that's-
go out there,
Right,
we're not
that's
gonna be
right.
out there on the
That's
weekend
right.
pulling them up.
And, I mean, those are fine, but, and so and then for residential, we would like to say that those signs, even the 2x2s, that size, you can put that in your yard anytime. I mean, if the 10-foot setback works for the rest of the county, then you can have those signs in your yard anytime, all year long. A 4x8 sign in a residential property, we would say that could be done 2 times a year for 30 days.
Is that 32?
At what? Yeah, so it was
4 by
height?
8, yeah.
A 4x8 is large enough, yeah.
And any specific height, just
No, because they're gonna be a standard, just go
we'll
between
come
those
up with a height
posts.
that's reasonable.
Yeah.
We all used 15 feet before,
I don't know what we used for height.
15 feet.
I mean, I don't even mind put a sign up 50, John, maybe put a sign up 15 feet high, but I don't
No,
know.
it's 15 by 1, not by 4. It'd be 15 by 1 or 7 by 2.
Yeah,
That's what you had before.
so the 4x8 max is, I think that's, I mean, I don't know if anybody puts up a sign bigger than that.
It's actually in ordinance right now. It
Right.
says it's
Yeah.
15 feet.
All
I'm
right.
reading
So
on
we
the
can-
application.
We can take a shot at coming up with that.
One thing, just for Lake Wiley and for countywide, if somebody's got a double-sided single sign, if they've got an 18 by 24 with a sign, with either side of that sign, I think that I consider that one sign. I don't consider like.
Double-sided, yeah.
I would
Double-sided
think
is
it'd be
one sign.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be one
definitely, that'd be
sign.
one sign.
Do we
And,
treat that differently?
Yes.
It's considered 2 signs?
That's what he said, that's what I was asking.
I thought you were talking about two like that.
Yeah, but you gotta get them coming and going.
Sure.
that's right.
What?
What?
No, when we print it off, they don't charge us for 2 signs, they just charge
Yeah,
for
one
one.
sign
Like a
front
real
and
estate
back.
sign, no, that's not two.
Okay, so I just want,
That's
a double-sided sign is one, I mean, it's got.
I don't
it's
see
up
that
to-
on the chart. Where's the double-sided come up?
He just mentioned, they mentioned.
I know, but where is it?
It's just one sign.
I just said that if you've got the temporary signage where it's just the flimsy paper or the banner, that's one sign. If it's double-sided, yes, it's one sign.
Double-sided is one sign.
Yes, ma'am.
The other thing that we may wanna not do, and I would love to ask the chamber this question too, is when you go back to the types of signs that are there,
Wall sign and.
that in the commercial area, we don't really want any temporary signs, but, so that would eliminate that flag of a sign, the little flapping flag thing.
If you're not allowing any temporaries, then that's not.
That covers.
Well, your
Because that-
ordinance
we get a lot of
doesn't allow
complaints.
signs in commercial right now.
Right,
I'm reading
that's
it.
right.
It
That's
does
right.
not allow it.
Because every time somebody puts those up, I get calls.
Maybe I'm misunderstanding, so the code does allow temporary signs in commercial districts in the Lake Wiley overlay right now.
Not on the application. I'm looking at the 21 application.
We don't
now.
want them in commercial.
It says
At 21 is prior to this ordinance.
21,
Yes,
Yes.
this was passed in 2022.
okay.
And when we changed the RICO, Jonathan, we went to zoning compliance for temporary signs, just a straight zoning compliance application, it has a temporary sign checkbox.
So we have one application for all these minor things. That's not an individual.
Actually, on your website, under applications, is this application still, you'd have to know to go to another box, go to another section, and then know to click the box. It's definitely conflicting information.
Sure, and that's another one that we can go ahead and delete. And this is what
Yeah.
folks call us, so, I understand it can be
And-
difficult to navigate the site.
And I'm going back to read this so I can logically think through how you went from 17 to 21 and now this, so I can put it all together. That's why I'm looking at it.
So Jonathan, so are we saying now people don't really have to apply for a sign now, right? They would, if we change these things, they wouldn't even have to apply.
Correct.
That's right, and they're not applying anyway.
Nobody knows.
Which
to
is
apply.
why I was gonna ask David,
They're
is
not
that
applying.
why you're suggesting no permitting, because they're not permitting and we're not enforcing it?
No, we suggested no permitting.
Yeah, but you said y'all are recommending, and that's why you're recommending, because we're not enforcing it and people aren't getting a permit anyway?
It is being enforced.
I think,
if somebody calls.
Only if somebody calls. But is that why you were you're saying staff is suggesting not having a permit?
That was a council motion at our last meeting.
I know, but you said staff is suggesting not having a permit, so I'm just saying, is it because?
Well, permit's not required for many of these signs now.
Right.
I'm fine with not having any permits. It makes it easier for us. just
Well,
not to
that's what I'm
permit.
asking, just so I understand the reason
I
why.
don't have any objection to that.
So Allison, right now though, you allow, temporary signs in commercial area, temporary ones. So you're saying you wanna eliminate that now?
Yeah, and here's why. Because if you've got an intersection and let's say you've got an intersection, you've got 5 different businesses that might be coming and going there.
Mhm.
The signs that get put there are not those businesses. Those are signs from, like I said, gutter cleaning and everything you can possibly think of.
Mhm.
Some kind of $10 million raffle thing you can do. So those signs, they're not related to the businesses. The businesses have their signs, and then they come in and put, they're everywhere. They just.
well, I don't think anybody should be able to put signs on somebody else's property, but if the property owner is okay with the signs,
Yeah, that's what I was
that's
thinking.
where
I know,
that's
what I was
where
thinking.
I drop it. Can we go back? Because I'm still
No.
trying to figure out what RECODE did, because this was not highlighted in our discussions on RECODE, so I don't know what the changes are. You said that there was not a limitation, that number one, on the lot perimeter signs didn't even exist. So we added that, that's new. What about the lot interior signs?
So that phrasing, lot interior sign, is only to differentiate between the lot perimeter sign and everything else that has to be behind the setback. And as David spoke to, these numbers, the 32 square feet is consistent with language that was in the old code.
Mhm.
So, if the property owner themselves, whether they're commercial or residential, I'm moving on to the broader thing. If the property owner says, I'm okay, and I'm okay with somebody putting a temporary sign out there, or a resident wants to put that out there, how many 4x8s are they, what are they restricted to? Help me understand the lot interior. Because the lot perimeter signs, you're saying that only allows one, and it has to be the little one, two
Yes,
by
that's
two.
correct. So here, it tells you the maximum of number of signs, and it's consistent across all 5 districts. You can have 6 temporary signs. on a
Was
single-
that in the code before?
I don't recall if there was a number assigned to temporary signs in the old code.
No more than 6 during a 12-month period, yep. So you had 6, 1 large and 5 small.
That's in RECODE.
That he's
Whatever,
reading from the old
2/24/21, that's what it was.
I don't have that in front of me.
So in 2022, it changed again, so
I
it
mean,
changed
if
at
you're
17.
if you're out in the country area and you've got, one business and they wanna put out all those signs, that's one thing, but when you're there, those businesses are lined up like they are in Fort Mill and Lake Wiley, that's not
Yeah,
what people wanna see.
Well, and again, excuse me, the reason I'm asking if it was in place before, and it seems like if a business decides they wanna advertise something for whatever, 30 days for somebody else, or maybe an event or something coming up, it seems like they should have a choice to do it or not.
Or a political sign.
Or a political sign if they're supporting the candidate, it seems like they should have an ability, because it's their business to put it out there, so Again, I know that you're representing your
I would
district.
like to represent my district, and based on what the chamber and I believe, based on a long time ordinance that continues to be watered down by people who do not live in this area.
But
And
why-
we've worked very hard to get these things in place.
How about if you put the provision about the owner? If the owner wants to put a temporary sign up, the owner can put a temporary sign up at their business, but nobody else can. But I'm with
So
you.
our sign ordinance also has limited what the signage that can go on buildings. We've limited the reader boards, we've limited the illumination. We've done things to keep things very non-sign. If you go to Hilton Head or you go to some of these places like this, we have a very similar ordinance to that. And we've tried to keep it You know, I mean, we just have a higher standard, and we would like to maintain that higher standard.
I appreciate you sharing it and sharing, because I'm trying to figure out if we could have the same thing throughout the county.
I think
if it's
ultimately
not too
ultimately you're
restrictive.
gonna want to, yeah. I
Maybe.
think ultimately
Well,
you would want to have
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I know, Allison, you represent your district, I get it. I'm just concerned about that business owner. If I owned a business and I had somebody that I wanted to support for 30 days or whatever, you know, for a race or whatever it is, and I wanted to put that out there, I wouldn't want anybody telling me, no, I own the business. You know,
The businesses don't
that's a
normally put
concern
out,
to me.
the businesses don't normally put out candidate type.
Well, I mean,
type
yeah, and if they
things.
normally don't do it, then you probably wouldn't see it that much. I'm just saying, I just.
Could be something
I
for
hate-
not-for-profit.
I think it's all about the
For a
property owner.
not-for-profit.
Yeah, I think it's about the property owner
I think
and
you
the
might
rights of
find
the
out it's about
property
the people
owner.
before this conversation's over. I mean, you know, that's why I called Susan, I said, what do we wanna do? Because this, you know, this is gonna come up, and we're gonna have people weighing in that aren't from Lake Wiley, they don't understand what we're dealing with in Lake Wiley, they don't understand what we're trying to make it look like. I mean, we had a gateway overlay plan that goes way back in time, and we wanted a particular look down Highway 49, and we would like to carry that on around to for our whole commercial area, which is 4.5 miles. And, you know, I mean, I'm calling Jonathan every week saying, hey, we've got all these signs up here. So you talk about I mean, it looks bad. And for a business to go out and I mean, put out big signs or little signs is just, I'm not in favor of it. I'm not in favor of it. And I don't wanna have to get everybody to start emailing again, because it's just.
Can you create a chart for me to show me what it was before Recode? I'd like to know what that is. Can you take this chart and just I'd like to know what that is. That's important to me.
I can try my best to get exactly what the consultants did was try to transcribe what was in a
I'm not looking
paragraph
at one
form
district.
into a
Lake
table.
Wiley
It's right above
had
it.
their zoning.
No, it's right above it. The rest of the county's right above it. That's it. That's the county, then Lake Wiley's below it.
You know what happens when you allow a business to put a sign up? I'm gonna tell you what happens. So when you have a business, let's say I'm just gonna use the national business. You got Taco Bell. Taco Bell puts a sign out that says, oh, special blah, blah, blah. And then you've got, the next one's gotta outdo them, and they gotta put a sign up. So ultimately, you've got multiple signs. It's like, I'm gonna say it again, it's like used cars. Somebody parks a used car for sale, and in a day, you've got 2 used cars. And in 2 days, you've got 4 used cars. It just grows, and it becomes just a tacky mess. And that's what this was intended in the beginning, and that's what the intent still is for us.
I mean, we've put temporary signs up like winter baseball game today, or basketball game, when they were struggling to get people out.
Yeah.
We might do it for a not-for-profit. Children's Detention Home has their.
So we have a
luncheon
corner, that's why I would
today.
like to have that one corner where everybody at some point is coming right by that, and that's where we put all community signs. I've never reported a sign that was out there, or, I mean, they're not allowed there, but we've never, complained about anybody having a sign up there, and that's a community corner, they put all community stuff.
It
But
is
they're not-
important to note that there is a section pretty much online that's for York County, and then it's Lake Wiley. So you already have something separate from the rest of the county that helps council members.
Hey, John,
So why can't we move on to the rest?
do banners
rest of the county?
count?
Let's move on. I don't wanna be here all night.
You wanna finish though, what
Move
you were
on
out,
to
you
the
were
rest
laying
of the
out, you
county.
said commercial, no
Means-
temporary
She's
signs,
got
what
her-
about
We're all
residential?
talking
So
about
I don't
residential-
know, I don't know what we're talking about.
Residential
It keeps
is-
going back to that.
Let's,
But
I'm
we
just gonna
got-
repeat it. Residential
we gotta
was,
vote.
if somebody wants to put a sign in their yard, the small signs,
2 by
24,
2?
7, 365, that's fine. They can have that up all year long. People have got Trump signs up that have been up for years now, and you know what? Far be it for us to tell them they gotta take down the sign.
So no permit, 2 by 2 for residential, no temporary signs for commercial, anything else?
4 by 8s, they can put a 4 by 8 in their yard.
32 square feet.
For the equivalent of, and this is how the Rock Hill thing is written, I think, the equivalent of 2 times 30 days. So they can put it up 30 days straight, twice a year, or they can put up the equivalent of that. Like, that's how my banner permit in Rock Hill.
Does that apply to
I
political
wanna leave
signs
it this way.
too?
To what?
Does that apply to political signs too? 30 days?
So they can put it 30 days before an election and
Okay, that's
30
what we
days before an
have.
election. That's the
I gotta
state
tell you,
county.
haven't
Go
put
back to what it
signs
was
out.
before Rico.
God Almighty, it took me 30 days to get the signs out.
For the whole county.
I mean, that's a
For
good
real.
standard. Most people put their
And
signs
then
out.
how long do we have to pick the signs
Property
up
owners.
politically? What's in, I saw in one ordinance it was 3 days. I'm telling you, I did it for free, but I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning getting signs.
So it doesn't matter.
So what is it? How long do you have to pick up the signs?
So we were.
Yeah,
gonna
they can be
change
there
that.
30 days.
30 days.
30 days.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
better than 3. That's awesome. Shouldn't
Or you
be
can do
30.
like me.
30 days is the total duration.
Most people pick them up next day.
I just
The
know
total,
somebody.
after the election, you got
No.
30 days.
They can be up 30 days.
In hers, but not in your counties currently,
Yes,
right?
30 days is what's currently
Information.
written.
A sign user may not display any single temporary sign.
Oh.
Why did it get changed?
Yeah, I can't agree with that.
Yeah, and I said, I think
Yeah,
it needs to
tells
be
us
longer.
400 pages
And
and stuff.
I really don't care if it's year round, but for the small ones,
So here again are your levelers, where I said.
And you
no
don't see
per-
commercial, you don't care if people put political signs up, cause they're gonna be in the right way.
Where- how many-
They're gonna be in the
how
right
many-
way.
how high?
So I think for, you know, so outside, so Allison, are you all, did you go through
Yes,
everything?
I did.
So I personally think for outside, like for my district, I would like to change that 30 to 90 days, twice per year. So that gives you 90 to 3 months that's a month and a half prior to your primary, a month and a half after. If you in it, you can put it back out for they're gonna be out there, they're out
90
there
days?
anyways.
they're not gonna take them down.
Not
They're
90
not
days,
gonna
twice
take
a
it.
year. You're saying 90, 45 and 45.
Well, he's saying primary year, you got a primary and you got
Yeah,
the
maybe,
elections.
maybe
you
I
got two
skinny
90-day
that down, maybe
periods.
60 and 60.
But why not just what David said, I think the thing would be, when do you take them up? So
I
after the
think
election,
that
they
is
have to
an
be up
issue.
within 30 days or whatever.
That gets on my
The
nerves
temporary
really
signs are
bad.
not just for election.
Ticking them
Right.
off.
They could.
Yeah,
After
but
the-
this
True.
after the event.
St. Patty's Day sale.
Yeah.
Good point.
So,
All
but-
right.
so Tom, you gotta remember, these aren't just political signs, just what David said, they're not just political signs. So if.
But
you
30
have-
days is too short of a period for somebody going for a primary or somebody going out for a race.
I'm looking at the old one.
That's too short.
I'm looking at what was in pre-Rico, and it seems 30 days, it had, I don't care, 60 days is fine with me. But I think what it does do is, and it needs to be 32 square feet. But here's the question I'm having is, a property owner can go out there and pull up any sign that's in that 10-foot thing at any time they want to,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because it's their property.
Right.
I think what we're trying to protect against is the property.
How can you even
owner-
go on private property?
Property owner putting up too many of his own signs.
But this one allowed 6, the old one
And that's
allowed
what we allow
6.
now.
But on
One
private
large-
You
property,
need to distinguish between residential.
on
and
private
commercial.
property, you
That's
ought
what
to
these
be able
sign
to put
districts
whatever
do,
you
the
want up.
numbers are not.
Amen.
I'm gonna put whatever I want up on mine.
I think an
I mean-
a 4x8, 60 days, going back to what, I don't think any of us intended to change it. That's the point. That's how I feel about it.
So you're good with change 30 to 60,
I'm good with
I
that.
don't think 60 is, you're saying 64,
2 times.
and that includes political signs?
62 times.
Yeah.
We can't distinguish.
You think it should be more?
Heck yeah.
Oh my
Have
God,
you had to
people
put
hate looking
signs
at
out yet?
political signs.
Well, the old code said 30 days.
You have not had to put signs out yet?
Here's the thing, you can go
Bless
out,
you.
Watts, here's the thing that's weird. You go out, you can pick the sign up, give it 2 days and put it right back out there. I mean, how is that? I just don't, I'm lost at how you.
You have some
enforce this.
legitimate competition or the fear that you're gonna lose? I forgot how many signs I bought, but I bought a truckload of signs, and I'm telling you, it took me
Well,
about
Well, so
30
what do you wanna-
hours. It took me 3 truckloads to collect all my
But
signs.
you was riding your
so let's-
bicycle putting them
so
out.
you wanna- I'm good with going back to 90.
I think 90 at least, Lord have mercy,
Because
60
you
days is
figure
not
for a
enough.
general campaign, you got September, October, November.
Yeah.
There's 90 days. For a primary, you've got,
And being practical,
April, May,
if you're
June.
not requiring a permit, it's gonna be very hard for us to track how long they've been up.
exactly.
If you have a permit, we know when you put it up, and we
Mhm.
know when it's gotta come down.
Yeah, that's true.
Without a permit, somebody's gonna say, hey, that sign's been up for 6 months. And then we're gonna go out there and look and say, okay, as of today, it's up, and then we're gonna start the clock. I mean,
So maybe we distinguish with political signs, that's the only one
But that's
distinguish.
what we're saying.
You
Can't do
Yeah.
that.
can't.
Sorry, you just can't do
You
that.
can't distinguish between signs,
No.
that's what
Correct.
the
Well-
Supreme Court said,
Why,
okay.
why can't you say something
Well-
about the pickup after an event?
Because then you're referring to the content of the sign.
But if you do the
Oh,
same
so-
thing by limiting how much time it can be up.
Yeah. All
Well,
right,
then
I'll
forget
give-
about
I'll give
it.
them none.
Just go on and
That's
pass.
what I said, allow-
Whatever you wanna do. Pass that one, let's go. It's 7:00.
Well,
I
if
make
you
a
say-
motion.
If you say 90, then you really don't, like you said,
I
the
know.
other signs other than political,
It's crazy. It is crazy.
90, you're gonna, 90 signs of political
Nobody's gonna
sign
get
means
a
you're gonna put it up
permit,
90 days
nobody's
before the
gonna pay
election.
Yeah.
So that's
That's
pretty
what
easy to
everybody just
measure.
said.
Other signs, like you said, you're not gonna know. You're not gonna know when they went up.
Well, for an election sign, we wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah,
know.
well,
That's
we're
true.
here.
Candidates are gonna put them.
Well,
up
you know when an
there.
election's over.
Right.
Yeah, you know
It's
what?
no longer relevant.
Well, we don't know for certainty that, I'm celebrating my candidate's victory, so I put up a sign in my yard after they won and not during the election cycle.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
We have to prove to a judge that it has in fact been there for longer than the code allows. That's what we have to prove.
So I think we do now, that gives us flexibility, I mean, September,
Well, remember the
October.
permit does that, and there's no
There's
enforcing
no-
it.
there's
Yeah,
no
again,
right to
you know, it's
enforce
not
it.
any like, you know,
Unless you
I'm-
do like Lake Welling, break it into residential.
I assure y'all,
and they're
this
all-
is not troubling me one bit.
No, I'm fine. with
That's
it.
way
I'm
more
fine
to
with
talk
it.
about than
okay,
signs.
I just
Going back to
did
the
So
old.
you're saying
and-
90 and then 30
90
pick up? Or
90
30
twice
pick
a
up?
year.
90 twice a year.
No
That's it.
distinguishing.
That's our change.
I'm gonna line all of Park Place Road up tomorrow with fresh milk signs.
There you go.
Just don't
Keep
put
it.
it on
Oh, pickup changed with, okay, never mind.
I'm putting them in all my hay fields.
I'm trying to process why we had a pickup in the
Are we
prior
done?
ordinances, but
Make a
since
motion.
the Supreme Court, that went away.
Oh, we don't make motions.
Now we have to draft an ordinance, so I just wanna make sure I'm giving you what you're asking for. So what I heard is no permits, no change to location, no change to number, no change to area, no change to height. What we were saying is
Yeah, height.
duration gonna go from
Height
30
needs to be
90.
32.
You mean square footage?
32.
You're not allowing anybody but, this-
32
on
feet.
those 6, you're only allowing the little teeny ones.
No, ma'am, so here you're allowed one.
132 square
One.
foot sign
One.
across the
32.
board.
Yeah, double side.
Put one big
I
one.
don't, no, I think that
5.
needs to be. You can
How many
only-
big ones you want?
I think 6. This is what the old one was. The
No,
old one
it's
didn't
6,
distinguish
it's
it.
one, the old
The
one's
big
one
signs are
large and 5
expensive.
small, to a total of
Hard
6.
stripes wrong. Well, they had
Yeah.
16, 6 of them,
Nobody will
16
say
square
anything
feet.
when they go up.
No, they're not.
6
I've seen
4 by 8
on corners.
signs is a lot.
Nobody's gonna do that though.
Yeah, it is.
This one, the old one said
Somebody will.
16 square foot, 6.
Oh,
16 square feet, so that's 3.
Somebody might really want Joe Biden.
We're really
Yeah.
we're really getting in the weeds here, cause
So here's
I
your-
know on the
here's
corner,
your
there will be
2,
people that
4,
put 3, like on a
Do
vacant
you wanna,
corner.
do you wanna change it to 2?
I would say 3.
3? Well, I don't really. Nobody's gonna.
Why are we having to do this?
that's what I'm saying, don't worry.
I think I
about it.
bought
Just
like
do what
600
they
them
said
little
do.
signs and then like
The old one though
6 big signs.
allowed twice as big, 6
Yeah,
of
we
them.
designate
We've
that.
now
That
reduced
corner.
that.
No, it's the same in the old code.
All right, so so we'll do,
No, it isn't,
What
not
do you
if
wanna
this is
do?
the right thing.
That's
It
what
says
we do.
16 square feet.
let's get this
It
done.
changed in 2022.
15 in
though.
height, limited to
Look,
6 at any
16
given
square
time.
feet, right there.
That's
5,
Okay.
16.
That's for commercial in Lake Wiley, 16.
Oh, that was easy enough. Okay,
So,
while
This
we're
is why
agreeing
our
about
country's
the-
gonna
I think
get
the
blowed
property
up. We're
owner
sitting here
should
worried about
decide.
damn
Look, I
signs.
think that's,
And the
Well, let's put
property
it-
owner is going to
They are
decide.
gonna decide.
Don't worry about it.
Well, I think we should at least.
when we start getting complaints, we'll go with what Alice is doing.
You're gonna get the car lot that's gonna wanna put 100 signs up. And that's
Yeah.
when we're gonna have to dial it back. That's just what we'll do.
You always will have some offenders. I mean, you
Yeah,
just
I'm
gotta.
gonna have some.
That's the whole purpose of.
Yeah, so the property, here's, the bottom line is, if that property owner doesn't care, they'll take it up at any point in time.
The problem's gonna be the property first that owns
You
the
think
car
the
lot.
commercial,
Yeah, the
the
car lot.
commercial property owner.
So,
The
so you
convenience
wanna
store,
go,
the guy that owns the convenience store, he's gonna put up, they'll put up as many as they can.
you wanna do 3?
Yeah.
If you want 3, I'll do 3. You want 3? 3?
Yeah,
3?
I could care less.
Okay,
I
three.
could care less.
Three's
Okay,
good.
three.
Put that on.
All right, so let's do three.
So that's a total, you're saying total of 8 signs then?
Three little ones, I mean, three big ones,
Right.
five ones.
Right, 3 big ones, 5 little ones. So that's the other
And
change
I'll
we
raise
need
you
to
two.
make.
But I still say if somebody owns a property, they ought to be able to put whatever the heck they want
Well,
up.
they're gonna.
I wouldn't find me, we're getting outvoted.
We're not enforcing it, so there's
They're gonna-
Well, I'm still gonna put up whatever I want
No,
to.
no, they
don't
could just
really
come take it
care.
up.
So then you're
All
gonna
right,
change
so I
the
think we got-
90
I think
days,
we got
30
it,
to
right?
90.
We got it down? Those
Thank
are-
I'm
y'all.
a citizen, I'm gonna make a citizen.
Huh? You are. Well, you can do that from the center of that road out there.
to adjourn?
I make a motion,
Motion to, oh, wait, do we have anything?
or,
Nothing?
executive
No?
session.
Nothing, no, nothing, okay, motion to
Second.
adjourn?
Motion
Second.
I'll take it back.
Aye.
Just a second.
Here, you need this.